What if I told you that a man who lost everything, his family, his freedom, his life's work, discovered the most powerful secret for finding meaning that has transformed millions of lives? What if the darkest chapter in human history revealed the brightest truth about human potential? Viktor Frankl survived 4 Nazi concentration camps, including Auschwitz. He watched his parents, brother, and pregnant wife die. He lost his manuscript containing his life's work. Yet in that hell on earth, he discovered something that not only saved his life, but became the foundation for a revolutionary approach to psychology that has helped millions find meaning in their darkest moments. In the next 30 minutes, I'm going to share Frankl's 3-part framework for finding meaning in any situation, no matter how hopeless it seems. You'll discover why your current struggles might be the key to your greatest purpose, and I'll give you the exact tools Frankl used to transform suffering into significance. Picture this. It's 1942, and you're a successful psychiatrist in Vienna. You've just completed a manuscript that could revolutionize psychology. You're married to the love of your life, and she's pregnant with your first child. You have a thriving practice, a loving family, and a bright future ahead of you. Then, in one night, everything is ripped away. You're arrested by the Nazis, separated from your wife, and thrown into a cattle car with hundreds of other Jews. Your manuscript is confiscated and destroyed. You don't know if you'll ever see your family again. You don't know if you'll survive the next day. This was Viktor Frankl's reality. But what happened next would challenge everything we think we know about human resilience, meaning, and the power of choice. Most people in the concentration camps died not just from the physical horrors, but from what Frankl called spiritual death, the loss of hope, purpose, and meaning. They gave up before their bodies gave out. But Frankl noticed something remarkable. Some prisoners, despite facing identical conditions, not only survived, but maintained their humanity, dignity, and even found ways to help others. What was the difference? It wasn't physical strength, intelligence, or luck. It was something far more profound, something that Frankl would later call the will to meaning. These survivors had discovered what he would spend the rest of his life teaching: that we cannot always choose what happens to us, but we can always choose what it means to us. Frankl realized that the concentration camp was the ultimate laboratory for understanding human nature. Stripped of everything external possessions, status, comfort, even basic human dignity, what remained? What could sustain a human being when everything else was gone? His answer would revolutionize psychology and give birth to what he called logotherapy, literally therapy through meaning. But this wasn't just academic theory. This was wisdom forged in the fires of the worst suffering imaginable. Through his observations in the camps and his work with thousands of patients afterward, Frankl discovered that meaning comes from 3 primary sources. Understanding these sources can transform how you approach every challenge in your life. 1. Creative values. What you give to the world. The first source of meaning is what Frankl called creative values. What you contribute to the world through your work, deeds, and creations. This isn't just about having a job or career. It's about finding ways to express your unique gifts and make a positive impact. Even in the concentration camps, Frankl found meaning through creative values. He began reconstructing his destroyed manuscript in his mind, using scraps of paper to write down key insights. He gave lectures to fellow prisoners about psychology and philosophy. He helped others find reasons to keep living. But here's what most people miss about creative values. They don't have to be grand or world-changing. A mother finding meaning in raising her children with love and wisdom. a teacher inspiring one student to believe in themselves, a friend offering comfort during someone's darkest hour. These are all expressions of creative values. I see this constantly in my own life and the lives of people around me. The person who feels empty despite career success often hasn't connected their work to something meaningful beyond themselves. The retiree who feels lost has stopped creating value in the world. The student who feels directionless hasn't yet discovered how their unique gifts can serve others. The key insight is this: meaning doesn't come from what you get from the world, but from what you give to it. When you shift from asking, "What can life give me?" to "What can I give to life?" everything changes. 2. Experiential values. What you take from the world. The second source of meaning is experiential values that you receive from the world through encounters with truth, beauty, love, and human connection. This is about being fully present to the goodness that exists even in difficult circumstances. Frankl wrote about prisoners who found meaning in a beautiful sunset, viewed through barbed wire, in a piece of music hummed by a fellow prisoner, in a moment of deep connection with another human being. Even in hell, beauty and love could still touch the human soul. This completely changed how I approach daily life. We live in a culture obsessed with achieving and acquiring, but we often miss the profound meaning available in simply experiencing life fully. The taste of morning coffee, the feeling of sunlight on your skin, the look in your child's eyes when they laugh, the satisfaction of a deep conversation with a friend. But experiential values go deeper than simple pleasures. They're about recognizing the sacred in the ordinary, finding beauty in unexpected places, and allowing yourself to be moved by life's profound moments. I remember a conversation with a woman who was going through a devastating divorce. She felt like her life was falling apart and nothing had meaning anymore. But when we explored experiential values, she began to notice things she had been missing. The way her daughter's face lit up when she came home from school, the comfort of her morning walk in nature, the kindness of friends who supported her through the crisis. These experiences didn't eliminate her pain, but they provided threads of meaning that helped her weave a new sense of purpose. She realized that even in loss, life was still offering her gifts. She just had to be present enough to receive them. 3. Attitudinal values. How you face unavoidable suffering. The third and most powerful source of meaning is attitudinal values, the stance you take toward unavoidable suffering. This is where Frankl's insights become truly revolutionary. Frankl observed that when we can no longer change a situation, we are challenged to change ourselves. The meaning of life is not found in avoiding suffering, but in how we choose to suffer. When we can transform our pain into purpose, our trials into triumphs, we access the deepest source of human meaning. This doesn't mean seeking out suffering or glorifying pain. It means recognizing that when suffering is unavoidable, and it will be for all of us, we can choose to let it destroy us or transform us. Frankl himself embodied this principle. He could have emerged from the concentration camps bitter, broken, and filled with hatred. Instead, he chose to transform his suffering into a gift for humanity. His experiences became the foundation for helping millions of people find meaning in their own struggles. I've seen this principle work in countless lives. The parent who loses a child and channels their grief into helping other grieving families. The person who overcomes addiction and becomes a counselor for others struggling with substance abuse. The survivor of trauma who becomes an advocate for others who have experienced similar pain. But attitudinal values don't require dramatic transformation. They can be as simple as choosing patience instead of anger when stuck in traffic, choosing gratitude instead of resentment when facing a setback, choosing compassion instead of judgment when dealing with difficult people. The key insight is this: You always have the freedom to choose your response to any situation. This freedom cannot be taken away by external circumstances, no matter how dire they may be. Now I want to give you Frankl's practical framework for finding meaning in any situation. This isn't just theory. This is a step-by-step process you can use right now, today, to transform how you experience whatever challenges you're facing. Step 1. Accept what is. The first step in finding meaning is radical acceptance of your current reality. This doesn't mean passive resignation or giving up hope for change. It means stopping the exhausting fight against what has already happened and redirecting that energy toward what you can actually control. Frankl learned this lesson in the most extreme way possible. He couldn't change the fact that he was in a concentration camp. He couldn't bring back his family or his manuscript. He couldn't control the guards or the conditions, but he could control his response to these realities. Most of our suffering comes not from our circumstances themselves, but from our resistance to our circumstances. We waste enormous amounts of energy fighting reality instead of working with it. We tell ourselves stories like, "This shouldn't be happening," "It's not fair," or "I can't handle this." But here's what Frankl discovered. When you fully accept what is, you free up all that energy to focus on what you can actually influence. Acceptance doesn't mean you like your situation or that you won't work to change it. It means you stop arguing with reality and start working from reality. I see this constantly in my own life and in working with others. The person going through a divorce who spends months fighting the fact that their marriage is over instead of focusing on how to move forward constructively. The entrepreneur whose business fails and who wastes energy on blame and regret instead of learning from the experience and planning their next venture. The practice is simple, but not easy. When you notice yourself resisting your current situation, pause and ask yourself, what am I fighting that I cannot change? How can I redirect this energy toward what I can influence? Step 2. Find the hidden gift. The second step is to look for what Frankl called the hidden gift in your situation. Every challenge, every setback, every form of suffering contains within it the seeds of growth, wisdom, or service to others. Your job is to find those seeds and nurture them. This isn't about positive thinking or pretending that bad things are actually good. It's about recognizing that even the most difficult experiences can become sources of strength, compassion, and wisdom if we approach them with the right attitude. Frankl found multiple hidden gifts in his concentration camp experience. It deepened his understanding of human psychology in ways that no textbook ever could. It gave him unshakable compassion for human suffering. It provided him with insights that would help millions of people. It proved to him that the human spirit is stronger than any external circumstance. But you don't need to experience extreme trauma to find hidden gifts. Every challenge in your life contains potential lessons and opportunities for growth. The job loss that forces you to discover new skills or pursue a more fulfilling career. The health crisis that teaches you to value what really matters. The relationship conflict that helps you develop better communication skills. The key is to ask yourself, what is this situation trying to teach me? How might this experience be preparing me for something important? What strengths am I developing that I never knew I had? I remember working with a man who was devastated when he was laid off from a job he'd held for 15 years. Initially, he was consumed with anger and self-pity. But when we explored the hidden gifts, he realized that the job had become a comfortable prison. The layoff forced him to pursue entrepreneurial dreams he'd been putting off for years. 2 years later, he had built a successful consulting business and told me it was the best thing that ever happened to him. Step 3. Choose your response. The third step is the most crucial. Consciously choosing how you will respond to your situation. This is where you exercise what Frankl called the last of the human freedoms, the freedom to choose your attitude in any given circumstances. This choice happens in the space between stimulus and response. Something happens to you, stimulus, and before you react automatically, response. There's a moment, sometimes just a split second, where you can choose. In that moment lies your power and your freedom. Frankl practiced this constantly in the concentration camps. When a guard was cruel to him, he could choose to respond with hatred or with understanding. When he felt despair, he could choose to focus on his suffering or on his purpose. When he was tempted to give up, he could choose to remember why his survival mattered. This doesn't mean suppressing emotions or pretending everything is fine. It means acknowledging your natural reactions while consciously choosing your response. You can feel angry and choose not to act on that anger destructively. You can feel sad and choose to let that sadness deepen your compassion. You can feel afraid and choose to act courageously despite the fear. The practice is to pause before reacting and ask yourself, given this situation, what response would be most aligned with my values and my long-term well-being? What response would I be proud of when I look back on this moment? This becomes easier with practice. Every time you choose your response consciously, instead of reacting automatically, you strengthen what Frankl called your spiritual muscle, your capacity to find meaning and maintain your humanity regardless of circumstances. Let me show you how to apply Frankl's framework to the most common challenges people face today. These aren't theoretical examples. These are real situations where meaning-making can transform your experience. Career dissatisfaction and purpose. Sarah came to me feeling completely lost in her corporate job. She was successful by external measures, but felt empty and meaningless inside. Using Frankl's framework, we worked through her situation. Accept what is. Sarah stopped fighting the fact that she was currently in a job she didn't love, and accepted that career transitions take time and planning. Find the hidden gift. She realized her corporate experience was teaching her valuable skills in project management and team leadership that would serve her in any future role. She also discovered that her dissatisfaction was actually her soul calling her toward more meaningful work. Choose your response. Instead of just complaining or quitting impulsively, Sarah chose to use her current position as a laboratory for developing the skills she'd need in her dream career. She started volunteering for projects that aligned with her values and began building relationships with people in fields that interested her. Within 18 months, Sarah had transitioned to a nonprofit organization where she felt deeply aligned with the mission. But more importantly, she had learned that meaning isn't something you find out there. It's something you create through your choices and attitudes. Relationship conflicts and communication. Mark was struggling with constant conflicts with his teenage son. Every conversation seemed to end in arguments, and he felt like he was failing as a father. Here's how Frankl's framework transformed their relationship. Accept what is. Mark stopped trying to control his son's behavior and accepted that teenagers naturally push boundaries as part of their development. Find the hidden gift. He realized that these conflicts were opportunities to model emotional regulation and to understand his son's perspective better. The challenges were also teaching him patience and forcing him to examine his own communication patterns. Choose your response. Instead of reacting with anger when his son was disrespectful, Mark chose to respond with curiosity. He started asking questions like, "Help me understand what you're feeling," instead of immediately correcting or lecturing. The transformation was remarkable. When Mark stopped trying to win arguments and started trying to understand his son, their relationship deepened significantly. The conflicts didn't disappear, but they became opportunities for connection rather than sources of division. Health challenges and physical limitations. Lisa was diagnosed with a chronic illness that forced her to give up many activities she loved. Initially, She was consumed with grief and anger about what she had lost. Frankl's framework helped her find a new sense of purpose. Accept what is. Lisa stopped fighting her diagnosis and accepted that her life would be different from what she had planned. Find the hidden gift. She discovered that her illness had given her profound empathy for others facing health challenges. It also forced her to slow down and appreciate simple pleasures she had previously overlooked. Choose your response. Lisa chose to become an advocate for others with her condition. She started a support group and began writing about her experience to help others navigate similar challenges. Lisa's illness didn't become a blessing. It remained a genuine loss and ongoing challenge. But by finding meaning in her experience, she transformed it from a source of pure suffering into a source of purpose and connection. Financial stress and economic uncertainty. David lost his business during an economic downturn and faced potential bankruptcy. The financial stress was affecting his marriage and his mental health. Here's how meaning-making changed his experience. Accept what is. David stopped denying the severity of his financial situation and accepted that he would need to rebuild from almost nothing. Find the hidden gift. He realized that losing his business had freed him from a lifestyle that was actually making him miserable. The crisis also brought him and his wife closer together as they faced the challenge as a team. Choose your response. Instead of wallowing in shame or blame, David chose to see this as an opportunity to create a more sustainable and fulfilling life. He simplified his lifestyle, strengthened his relationships, and eventually started a smaller business that was more aligned with his values. David's financial recovery took several years, but his psychological recovery happened much faster because he had found meaning in the experience. Now I need to share with you the most profound insight from Frankl's work, something that might challenge everything you've been taught about happiness and success. Our culture teaches us that the goal of life is to avoid suffering and maximize pleasure. We're told that if we just work hard enough, make enough money, find the right relationship, or achieve the right goals, we can create a life free from pain and full of happiness. But Frankl discovered something revolutionary. The people who are most fulfilled and resilient aren't those who have avoided suffering, but those who have found meaning in their suffering. The goal isn't to eliminate pain from your life, it's to ensure that your pain has purpose. This doesn't mean seeking out suffering or believing that pain is inherently good. It means recognizing that suffering is an inevitable part of the human experience, and when it comes, we have the power to transform it into something meaningful. Think about the people you most admire. Chances are, they're not people who have lived easy, pain-free lives. They're people who have faced significant challenges and used those challenges to develop wisdom, compassion, and strength that they then share with others. The parent who loses a child and starts a foundation to help other grieving families. The person who overcomes addiction and becomes a counselor. The survivor of abuse who becomes an advocate for others. The entrepreneur who fails multiple times before building something meaningful. These people haven't avoided suffering, they've transformed it. But here's the key insight. You don't have to wait for major trauma to apply this principle. Every day brings small opportunities to choose meaning over misery, purpose over self-pity, growth over stagnation. The traffic jam that teaches you patience. The difficult coworker who helps you develop emotional intelligence. The financial setback that forces you to clarify your priorities. The health scare that reminds you what really matters. The relationship conflict that deepens your capacity for love and understanding. Frankl called this tragic optimism, the ability to maintain hope and find meaning despite the inevitable tragedies of human existence. It's not naive positivity that denies reality. It's mature wisdom that faces reality fully and still chooses to create meaning from whatever life brings. This is perhaps the most countercultural message you'll ever hear, Your problems are not obstacles to a meaningful life. They are the raw material from which a meaningful life is built. Your struggles are not evidence that something is wrong with you. They are opportunities to discover what you're truly capable of. The question isn't whether you will face difficulties. The question is whether you will allow those difficulties to destroy you or transform you. Will you let your pain make you bitter or better? Will you use your struggles as excuses or as fuel? Here's what I want you to understand. Viktor Frankl's secret isn't really a secret at all. It's a choice that's available to you right now, in this moment, regardless of what you're facing. You have the power to find meaning in any situation. Not because your circumstances will magically become easier, but because you can choose what those circumstances mean to you. You can choose how you respond. You can choose what you learn. You can choose how you grow. Your current struggles contain within them the seeds of your greatest contributions to the world. Your pain can become your purpose. Your trials can become your triumphs. Your wounds can become your wisdom, but only if you choose to make them so. If this video has opened your eyes to the power of meaning-making, please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. It helps me reach more people who need to hear this message. And leave a comment below sharing one way you're going to apply Frankl's framework to a current challenge in your life. I read every comment and often feature the most insightful responses in future videos. Next week, we're exploring how to integrate all the wisdom we've covered from Marcus Aurelius, Carl Jung, and Viktor Frankl into a comprehensive philosophy for modern living. You'll discover how these three revolutionary thinkers can work together to help you build an unshakable foundation for meaning, purpose, and resilience. Remember, you are not a victim of your circumstances. You are the author of your response to your circumstances. And in that response lies your freedom, your power, and your capacity to create a life of profound meaning. Viktor Frankl survived the worst that humanity can inflict and emerged with a gift for all of us. The knowledge that no matter what happens to you, you always retain the power to choose what it means. That choice is your birthright, your responsibility, and your greatest opportunity. The question isn't what life will bring you. The question is what you will make of what life brings you. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video where we put it all together and create your personal philosophy for thriving in the modern world.